The world is changing rapidly in ways that few could have predicted just a decade ago. Every day, headlines remind us that the familiar patterns of global interaction are being rewritten before our eyes. The pace of change is relentless, and the consequences are felt in every corner of the globe. Old certainties about global trade and alliances are being tested as never before. The systems that once seemed stable and reliable are now under immense pressure, forcing nations to reconsider their priorities and strategies. In the United States, the sight of empty grocery store shelves has become a stark symbol of this new era. But unlike past shortages caused by natural disasters or economic crises, this scarcity is the result of a deliberate political decision by Canada, a close neighbor and longtime ally. This single act has exposed deep vulnerabilities in the American economy, revealing just how dependent modern societies are on complex international supply chains. It's a vivid reminder that no nation is truly self-sufficient in today's interconnected world. While the U.S. grapples with these challenges, the European Union has taken a bold step forward, securing a landmark trade agreement with the Mercosur bloc in South America. This deal represents not just economic opportunity, but a strategic realignment on the global stage. Europe's outward-looking ambition stands in sharp contrast to America's recent inward focus. As factories close and industries struggle, the EU is forging new partnerships, determined to shape the future rather than be shaped by it. These events are more than isolated incidents. They signify the fracturing of the old world order. The alliances and institutions that defined the last century are being challenged, and a new, more competitive global landscape is emerging. Canada's decision to halt key exports to the US is not just a bilateral dispute, it's a symptom of a broader trend toward protectionism and transactional diplomacy. Nations are increasingly willing to use economic leverage to achieve political goals. As a result, the world is becoming more unpredictable and transactional. Financial markets react with volatility, and international summits are marked by tension and uncertainty. For policymakers, business leaders, and ordinary citizens alike, understanding this new reality is one of the greatest challenges of our time. The rules are changing, and the stakes have never been higher. In this series, we'll take a closer look at Canada's bold move and Europe's ambitious new partnership. We'll examine the motivations behind these decisions and what they mean for the future of global cooperation. The choices made by world leaders today are not just about short-term gains or losses. They will shape the global landscape for decades to come, influencing everything from economic prosperity to geopolitical stability. This isn't just about trade or politics, it's about the very future of the global order itself. As the world stands on the edge of profound transformation, the path we choose now will determine what comes next. The US-Canada relationship is a unique web of economic, cultural, and social ties. For over a century, their border has been a bridge for goods and people. Daily trade once exceeded $2 billion, with Canada as a top US trading partner. Landmark trade agreements like NAFTA deepened this integration. This system created wealth but also dependencies now painfully clear. The fresh produce, lumber, and minerals Americans rely on often come from Canada. This relationship was assumed unshakable, a dangerous complacency. The history of US-Canada trade is one of deepening integration. It was a model of cooperation, not designed for rising nationalism. The system's efficiency became its greatest weakness. Now historical bonds are being tested, forcing a re-evaluation of this foundational relationship. On September 1, 2025, Canadian Prime Minister Justin Trudeau made a stunning announcement that sent shockwaves through both Canada and the United States. Standing at a podium in Ottawa, Trudeau declared an immediate halt on all food exports to the US, a move that few had anticipated and that instantly dominated headlines across North America. The official reason behind this unprecedented decision was to ensure Canadian food security in the face of mounting global supply chain volatility. With shelves already running low in some Canadian supermarkets and growing anxiety among shoppers, the government argued that drastic action was needed to protect the nation's food supply from further disruption. The announcement blindsided Washington, catching US officials completely off guard. The halt immediately affected key agricultural staples such as potatoes, wheat, and pork, products that form the backbone of cross-border food trade and are essential to both countries' food systems. Canada had been grappling with a series of poor harvests due to extreme weather, compounded by soaring fertilizer costs and global supply chain disruptions. Food inflation had reached a staggering 15%, putting immense pressure on Canadian households and raising fears of shortages. In his address, Trudeau emphasized that his government's top priority was to protect Canadian families, especially those already struggling to afford basic groceries. He framed the export halt as a necessary, if difficult, step to shield Canadians from further price hikes and food insecurity. The scale of the decision is enormous. In 2024 alone, Canada exported over $30 billion worth of agricultural products to the United States, making it one of the largest food trade relationships in the world. The sudden stop sent shockwaves through the entire supply chain. The U.S. is especially reliant on Canadian imports during the winter months, when domestic production drops and Canadian produce fills American shelves. The halt raised immediate concerns about shortages and price spikes in American supermarkets. Within hours of the announcement, commodity futures markets reacted sharply. Prices for wheat, pork, and other staples surged as traders scrambled to assess the impact of the sudden supply disruption, fueling fears of broader inflation. Politically, the move appeared to pay off for Trudeau. After months of declining approval ratings, his decisive action was met with a surge of support from Canadians who saw him as standing up for their interests in a time of crisis. However, critics in the United States were quick to condemn the decision, arguing that it violated the spirit, if not the letter, of the USMCA trade agreement. American lawmakers called for urgent talks and threatened retaliatory measures. The White House issued a strongly worded statement calling Canada's move unjustified and demanding an immediate reversal. Despite mounting international pressure, Ottawa remained firm, insisting that national food security must come first. The result is a trade crisis unlike anything North America has seen in generations. With freight trucks halted at the border and diplomatic tensions rising, the future of cross-border food trade and the stability of both nations' food supplies hangs in the balance. As North America grapples with internal divisions and political unrest, the continent finds itself at a crossroads. The ongoing protests and political instability have created an environment of uncertainty, affecting both domestic and international relations. In contrast, Europe is taking decisive steps to secure its economic future by forging a strategic alliance with South America through the Mercosur trade deal. This partnership is not just a trade agreement, but a vision for a shared future. Finalized on September 5, 2025, after years of negotiations and diplomatic efforts, this landmark agreement marks a new chapter in international trade relations. The $10 billion agreement is a significant economic pact, representing a commitment to mutual growth and prosperity. It is a testament to the power of diplomacy and collaboration. Europe is building a new order, one that emphasizes innovation, sustainability, and resilience. The continent is investing in its future, creating a robust economic framework that can withstand global challenges. By focusing on diversification and strategic partnerships, Europe is positioning itself as a leader in global trade. The collaboration with South America opens new avenues for economic and cultural exchange. The deal includes substantial investments in South American infrastructure and sustainable agriculture, fostering development and innovation. These initiatives aim to create jobs and improve living standards across the region. The EU gains access to crucial commodities, addressing supply chain vulnerabilities that have been exposed in recent years. This access ensures a steady flow of resources necessary for economic stability. The ongoing political crisis in North America served as a catalyst, pushing the deal to completion. It highlighted the need for Europe to seek new alliances and reduce dependency on traditional partners. European leaders see it as a triumph of diplomacy and economic policy, celebrating the successful negotiation and the promise of a prosperous future. The agreement lays the groundwork for deeper integration and cooperation, fostering a sense of unity and shared purpose between the two continents. Europe diversifies away from traditional trade partners, boosting its influence on the global stage. This strategic move enhances its economic resilience and global standing. The deal shifts global trade flows, creating new opportunities and challenges. It establishes a new economic axis with South America, redefining the landscape of international commerce. This partnership promises economic growth and stability, benefiting both regions and setting a precedent for future collaborations. As Europe moves forward with confidence, the U.S. finds itself on the sidelines, observing the shifting dynamics of global power and influence. Canada's export halt had immediate effects on American lives. Grocery stores in northern states saw empty shelves and rising prices. The Consumer Price Index for food jumped 4% in a week, a record increase. The American food industry, reliant on Canadian materials, faces turmoil. Major companies warn of production slowdowns and layoffs. The sight of empty shelves creates anxiety and uncertainty. News of shortages prompts hoarding, worsening the situation. The crisis forces a re-evaluation of food security and trade dependencies. Nations question reliance on imports, moving toward economic nationalism. The era of frictionless global trade may be ending. The trade crisis reshapes global politics, straining US-Canada relations. Washington feels betrayed, with Congress considering retaliatory measures. The White House seeks to avoid a full-blown trade war. The EU-Mercosur deal signals Europe's independent course. Europe positions itself as a reliable global partner, enhancing its influence. Other global players like China see opportunities and risks. Nations learn the importance of diversification in international relations. The crisis impacts international institutions, weakening faith in global rules. The political order is being weakened from within. Experts provide insight into the crisis's depth. Dr. Anjali Sharma highlights the fragility of integrated supply chains. The US-Canada system's efficiency came at the cost of resilience. Professor David Cohen explains Canada's decision as a sovereignty assertion. Domestic food inflation provided political cover for the move. Dr. Isabelle Dubois sees the EU-Mercosur deal as strategic foresight. The EU diversifies supplies and expands influence with Mercosur. Ian Bremmer warns of the dangers of economic nationalism. The weaponization of interdependence erodes trust in the global economy. A world prioritizing security over cooperation is poorer and more dangerous. The path forward is uncertain and challenging. The US and Canada must prioritize de-escalation to avoid a trade war. Diplomacy and serious negotiations are essential. The US needs a long-term strategy for economic diversification. The era of taking supply chains for granted is over. The European model offers lessons in building strategic partnerships. Trade policy should be a key instrument of statecraft. Navigating this fractured world requires a shift in mindset. We must value resilience and stability over short-term efficiency. The crisis of September 2025 is a harsh but necessary lesson. We stand at a pivotal moment in global economics and politics. The US-Canada crisis and Europe's new alliance mark a new era. The post-Cold War period of American dominance is over. The world is now more complex and competitive. The crisis exposes the fragility of established relationships. Europe seizes opportunity, diversifying and expanding influence. Power is becoming more diffuse, with new coalitions forming. The world is not less connected, but connections are changing. We must adapt to this new reality, being strategic and resilient. The world of 2025 is complicated but filled with new possibilities. Is this the end of the US-Canada special relationship? Let me know your thoughts in the comments below.